Okay, welcome back to Lifestyle Etiquette Unraveled, a fireside chat with global experts and opinion leaders from all corners of the world, sharing, inspiring, and educating everything lifestyle and etiquette related. And today, I hope we'll be informed, we'll be inspired, and we are learning, as usual, from the best. I'm Juliana. My guest today has been working for over 2 decades in the White House, serving both President Clinton and First Lady Hillary Clinton as Social Secretary, as well as President Obama as Chief of Protocol with the rank of an ambassador. For every successful state visit, peace treaty signed, someone set the stage behind the scenes. This person did not only witness history, facilitate history, she oversaw the diplomatic details of countless state visits, official visits, and working visits with a mission to advance the foreign policy of the Obama administration to create an environment for successful diplomacy. Her extraordinary book, Protocol: The Power of Diplomacy, is a masterclass on how international protocol actually works, can work for everyone, in everyday life, and in every business. She once said, "Through almost 2 decades of advising our great nation's leaders, the power of protocol has not let me down, and I know it won't let you down either." Let's welcome Ambassador Capricia Pinavich Marshall. Hello.
Hello, hello. It's such a pleasure to join you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor. We are so excited to have you here, and we have so many questions in this area.
Wonderful, wonderful. And thank you for focusing your efforts on this area. We need more focus on it.
Oh yes, we need more. And you will explain why. So Capricia, before we dive into the world of protocol and etiquette, can you please share with us a bit of your background, especially your upbringing and your core values, which I think shaped you? And it would be nice to have a brief, insight about how your past and the whole upbringing was, especially for this region.
Sure. And it's a beautiful region at that. I had the great honor privilege of traveling with President Obama to that region, with President Clinton, and then First Lady Hillary Clinton to the region, to many of those countries. And I have now in particular fondness for Singapore, where you are currently located, Julie.
Yes, correct.
I grew up, I'm first generation American. My mother arrived from Mexico, and my father from then Yugoslavia, and now the region is Herzegovina, and we are Croatian, identified as Croatian. So I grew up with a real mixed background. I grew up in my maternal grandmother's home in Cleveland, Ohio, which is a city that has so many ethnic communities, a whole variety of them. And I want to say that my grandmother's home was sort of like a mini United Nations, because not only did we have, of course, people from Mexico and Croatia speaking those languages, but we had relatives from Poland and Italy, and neighbors from Russia and from Lebanon. And so it really was this cacophony of fabulous languages always being spoken there, and so many different traditions and cultures being celebrated And of course,
People.
so many fabulous foods being served. And so I as a very young person, I mean,
Yes.
very, very young,
Yes.
this was part of who I was. It was the core of my being,
Yes.
to be around those of difference, and to accept and to celebrate those differences. And
Yes.
so, you know, when I was given this wonderful posting, when I was offered by President Obama, he put my name before the Senate as his selection. And then I was sworn in as chief of protocol in front of both of my parents, who were so incredibly proud as I stood on that stage.
I believe you. I believe you. I was so touched about the story you wrote. I read your book, of course, about your parents and how they suffered, but that also gave you that feeling of being driven, you and your brother. I was really touched about that story. Yeah.
Oh, it's so true, Julie. You know, and that was always such a question mark in my head, because, you know, here I was in a home that was just brimful of differences and beautiful differences, and yet my father was not accepted because he had a thick accent in the United States of America. He was called a displaced person, a dumb DP. And my mother, because she was Mexican, had to suffer the slurs of wetback and things of that sort. And so, you know, although they shielded my brother and I from this, I mean, they really kept it from us. You could see it. You could see the pain on my father's face when he had to endure this. And the man was brilliant. He had such great talent. And he came to this country with $4 in his pocket and so many dreams and so many hopes that he fulfilled. He found the American dream here. I mean, his daughter worked in the White House for the President of the United States.
Exactly. I mean, that's why I wanted to hear, you know, this story. It's really beautiful, and that shaped you probably, isn't it? That shaped.
Oh, absolutely, Julie. Absolutely. I am forever grateful to my parents for how they raised us, how they infused into us the importance of our background, the beauty of their cultures. I mean, we went to, you know, we went to soccer matches with my father on Saturday afternoons, always to the Croatian Center. We always had roasted lamb and pig. And then on Sundays, we were with my grandmother, Nani. And the entire house was filled. And we would be making tortillas by hand and stirring the mole. All of these traditions have stuck with me, have become, I mean, they're glued to my persona. And it's rich. It's a rich background. You know, replicating that for my own son has been quite difficult, but I tried very hard.
Do try, don't give up. Many people do not really understand what protocol is, which we'll be talking about today. And protocol dates back to antiquity. And I am now wondering, is this the reason, because of lack of understanding what that word means or that area, that people think we don't need it or it's outdated because they have a completely different thinking of what it could be? Can you please explain to us, what is protocol? What are the principles of protocol? And do we really need it?
Oh, well, let me first very affirmatively say that yes, the world needs it, and we need it today more than ever. Things are rapidly changing. There is more divisiveness in our world than ever before. What protocol does, and it happens often without people understanding or knowing that it is occurring, because things go so smoothly. People don't understand, how did this happen so smoothly? Well, it's due to protocol. What I did in the Office of Protocol was really create a foundation for our diplomatic endeavors before the president shook someone's hand, before he signed a piece of paper, before he engaged in a discussion. We created the environment for diplomacy to take place, selecting the proper room, what effects would that room have, looking at what was on the table, how was the table constructed, was it large, was it small, where were the people seated, what was the placement, what are the precedence orders. There were so many details that we took into account before that event took place. And then we create a roadmap. We created a roadmap for that engagement.
Nice. A roadmap, yeah.
Absolutely, because what we want to do is we want to avoid those pitfalls. You know, we don't want the president or the secretary of state to run into a question mark moment. What do we do here? We never want that. We never want a what do we do here moment. We want it to be well outlined so that, first off, all leaders, everyone feels welcomed, respected, and assured of what's happening. But additionally, when I created the roadmap, it was also a bit of a power pivot in the direction of my president, my leader, because I was setting the roadmap in the direction of his goals, making sure that he was able to more easily achieve his foreign policy goals. And I'm so glad that you've read my book, Julie, but you note that in there that I put in a few examples of how this was incredibly effective with his relationship with President Putin and President Hu Jintao and then President Xi. You know, these global leaders in both Russia and China our relationships can be fractious, and we want to make sure that we're actually coming together because we want these relationships to work.
So to create a roadmap for the diplomatic stage, or how can we word it in a very simple, clear way for everyone to understand. I always say protocol is the etiquette of diplomacy and state affairs. And then people ask me, but what is etiquette? And I say, well, it's the traffic light of daily human interactions. If we don't go by, if there won't be traffic light, we will crash into each other. So I try to simplify it for people to understand. So how will you simplify it for protocol?
Sure. Yeah. And I agree with you completely, Julie, on etiquette. Etiquette really is about how do we conduct ourselves, our behaviors when we interact in social affairs and business affairs, right? I change my rules of etiquette. I adhere to the rules of etiquette when I'm in a different country. So if I'm in the Middle East, it would be different than if I am here in the United States. If I am in Singapore, I adhere to different social codes of conduct there. But for protocols really those, like I said, those building blocks, the roadmap. So we literally will write out for our leaders the beginning stages of an event, what occurs during that event, and then how the event should end up. And we know that one of the biggest rules that we adhere to is flexibility.
Correct.
Even though you give a proper roadmap and this is how this event will run, you have to be prepared for the things that just don't go as you had hoped, right?
And it happens.
Oh, absolutely. And I call them off-ramps. Let's be flexible, like with yoga. Because there may be a little off-ramp. And when that happens, to be prepared quickly, to act quickly, and to adjust to that moment. It could be that someone arrives late. It could be that the document that was supposed to be signed no longer is adhered to. In business negotiations, it could be that a client no longer wants to engage in that contract at this moment. So how do you change? How do you switch gears? And being prepared for those. And then how do you get them back on to your roadmap? Being able to be nimble enough to adjust to the changes, and then also knowing, and that's the beauty of having this plan, is that how you get them back onto the plan so that you can continue on with your endeavor.
You've already mentioned so many things for people to know. It's really hard work and not that easy. My next question will be, would you please unravel the misconceptions around what a chief of protocol may be? Because people just see, the beautiful gowns and the red carpet will be rolled, and you have the banquets and dinners and shaking hands. Is that all just fancy? Can you unravel the misconceptions? Yeah.
It's not all that's well, there are some beautiful aspects to this job. Yes. Thank you.
But not only. Actually, that's just, after the behind the scenes is done.
Absolutely. As I have noted to so many of my colleagues, I compare us to like swans on top of a lake.
Yes.
You're gliding along very smoothly, but
beautiful.
you're paddling ferociously beneath the water and trying to keep everything in a forward motion. So the chief of protocol leads the team. And in the United States, I was very lucky to have a team of about 80 people who worked for me. And they were made up of those who are from the Foreign Service, career civil service, and then those who are political appointees, who are selections from that current president. And in our office, it was about a third. And it was a great team, the best team. I mean, just real, true professionals. And we had 6 divisions in this office. And so the chief oversees all 6. There's a visits division where any time the president received a guest, whether a president, prime minister, king or queen to the United States, I was there at the airport, firsthand extended to welcome them to the United States. That is precisely why the position in the United States receives the rank of ambassador. We stand there instead of the president, at the president's behest. Yes. And so it's an honor to be able to welcome our foreign visitors.
It is.
Absolutely. And it sets the tone for that event, for that entire engagement. But I also traveled with the president wherever he went around the world and literally was glued to his side. The moment that he descended the steps, I was already at the bottom of his plane and waiting for him with my foreign counterparts. Would immediately travel with him to each and every engagement that he had so that I was on hand to appropriately advise, work through any issues that might come along the way, and again, engage with my counterparts on the seamless execution of that visit. We are the bridge. In the visits office in particularly, we are the bridge between the United States government and the foreign government.
Yes,
so that we can make sure that everything transmits appropriately back and forth. But there's also a ceremonials office that primarily assists the Secretary of State. There's the head of the Blair House office division, and that is the president's guest house. This is where, when visitors come to our country, the president offers the Blair House to them. We, of course, also had a management division. We also had a division that took care of the Foreign Diplomatic Corps. And this was making sure that they were appropriately credentialed when they come to our country, that they are acknowledged by the president, and it's only the president that can credential the Foreign Diplomatic Corps.
Correct.
And then I created another division, and this division really was intentional in making sure that not only did we credential the Foreign Diplomatic Corps, but that we made them feel valued in our country. Those who are posted to the United States are some of the best of the best of the diplomats. And, I wanted to make sure that we were really engaging with them, that we really had a relationship that would help with the bilateral strengthening between our two countries. And so I created this new division to showcase more of our country to them, to talk more about our administration to them with high-level officials, from the president's chief of staff to the cabinet members, and also to have cultural exchanges between children, children of the embassies who can teach American students about their culture.
Wonderful. That leads me to my next question, namely global cultural awareness. And as you know, the core of this whole fireside chat is to bring these, for me, vital aspects such as global cultural awareness, etiquette, soft skills, people skills, diplomatic skills, life skills, call it, whatever you want, to the forefront. And my question will be, especially in your role where you meet people from all over the world, how did these skills play a vital role in your daily life, but also in your work? And as you just now mentioned, you try to bring the children from the other part together to get to know the culture of the others, which is already promoting global cultural awareness. How else did you promote this, and how vital did they play in your daily life?
Well, Julie, you do point out, I mean, these are vital, important issues to be raised. And I used, and you noted, soft power.
Yes. Correct.
This term was coined by Joseph Nye. And what it really means is, how can I pull you into my way of thinking? How can I attract you? How can I make attractive what I am saying, what I am proposing? And, because in hard power, what we're saying is, you will do, I will force you. That's war, economic sanction.
Correct.
We all know about that.
Yes.
But he said that there were so many other ways in which we can engage with our counterpart that can offer opportunities that we are missing. And
exactly.
In protocol, we used every opportunity. Gifts, I believe in a very thoughtful gift.
Yes.
It is appropriate in your personal life, as well as, of course, in the official life. Now, oftentimes in government, they will defer to, giving a glass sculpture or a bowl or a silver something. That doesn't really say a lot about the relationship, about why we're getting together, or what I hope will come from this engagement.
Yeah.
So I kind of made my poor team, the wonderful gift officers, a little insane over my desire to always find that perfect gift. Yes. And to look hard and into, well, why are we getting together with this person? And what will they find meaningful from our president that may move them closer in our relationship, that may move them into feeling that they want to agree with the president on his foreign policy initiative. I'm not saying that they're the magic bullet. I'm just saying that it's another element to that engagement that can help push it forward. And it worked magically, I have to say, time and again. We had a wonderful engagement with Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, where the president was invited, and
we'll come to that. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
Go on. But I have a special question to that. I think it will be interesting for the audience. Yes, please. Oh,
do you want me to tell the story?
Tell the story.
Okay. So we had this wonderful engagement where President Obama was invited by Her Majesty to the UK for a state visit, and gifts were top of mind because there had been a little bit of an exchange earlier on in the administration that hadn't gone as well.
Yes. And that can happen.
I was not there at the time. So we put a lot of thought into this. We did a great deal of research, and that's really, really important. The team was fantastic at doing its research. And we found, of course, that Her Majesty was very fond of her father, and wanted to had a collection of all of it from all of his travels around the world. So we looked into his last visit to the United States, and we collected so many note cards and thank yous and menu cards and invitations, anything that we could find from that visit, and put it together in a leather-bound portfolio. And when we presented it to Her Majesty, I have to say, Julie, she was so moved. It looked like she had a little tear in her eyes. She was, just moving page to page, and she looked up at the president. She said, "Oh, thank you."
Because it was so thoughtful, not just a gift.
She was so moved. And it's in those instances that, you've made a relationship much more special. She was so touched by this. And we heard, just a few moments after that, she's on the television, Her Majesty very pleased with gifts. And so it did exactly what we wanted. We wanted an exclamation mark to be placed on this visit. And that's what we did. Emphasis on the relationship, moved it into the proper direction. It's about emotion. It's about how how you're investing in that relationship.
Investing, exactly.
And how do you show respect? How do you develop trust? That's what you also want to do. You're investing in these relationships. You want a development of trust, so that when there are difficult times that come about, and they will, in any relationship.
Exactly.
Whether it's in government or business or your personal life.
Correct.
You want to be able to fall back on that real strength of trust that you developed over time.
The foundation.
And that's what we were able to do.
Yes, the foundation. Beautiful story. And it tells us also a lot about the topic gift selection. Wonderful. Well, were there any protocol faux pas that happened? Anything you can share with us? And how do you react in this situation? The improvising.
Now.
Or any challenges communicating and working across different cultures? Any challenges?
Absolutely. I mean, there were some challenges, and as you note, I mean, it is how you relate to a different culture. You have language barriers sometimes that you can overcome, but you're hopeful, and sometimes misunderstandings due to the interpretation of what was being said. And so you want to make sure that well in advance that you are trying to avoid those moments by writing something down and conveying it, as well as communicating it verbally. In those instances, you should be able to avoid most gaffes, most misunderstandings when it comes to intention. But alas, there are protocol mishaps that do happen. And as you know, Julie, I talk about a few because we have to uncover our errors, our oopsie doodles, because we learn from them. We make sure that when we share those, that others say, "Oh goodness, I don't want a repeat of that." And this is how you can avoid it. I had one with regrettably, the president of the Philippines at an APAC event. It was during a time that we were incredibly busy during the United Nations General Assembly. And that occurs every September here in New York. And I mean, just the world descends upon New York. And we always have a very busy schedule anyway, but the president decided to also put a summit in the middle of this gathering. And so we had to convert our space into a summit gathering, and placement of flags, and the placement of the leaders at the table, president's order, everything. Well, at this event, because not an excuse, but an explanation, is that, we had a lot on our plate. And so we had given the duty to someone who was not in protocol to actually hang the flags. We had shown them which flags, but
I hear something coming, not in protocol. Risky.
Well, it was bad. The person hung the flag of the Philippines in the wrong way. And not only was it inappropriately hung, but in the manner that it was hung what it symbolized was that the Philippines was at war, which of course it was not.
Oh my
And
God.
so when the presidents were escorted out onto the global stage and everyone could see them, the social media went crazy instantly. And I was standing behind the stage. One of the protocol officers came up to me and said, "Oh my goodness, we have a real problem." And so first thing you do, you own it. You own that problem.
Yes.
And I had to own it. The
Yes.
buck stopped with me. I couldn't finger point and
Yes.
say it was so-and-so.
Correct.
No. Bottom line was, it was my team, my fault. And so I immediately went to the ambassador of the Philippines and profusely apologized, told my team to get out onto the stage the best that they could and change the flag.
Exactly.
When we had the moment that they could do that, they changed the flag. And then of course I had to write a written apology to the government of the Philippines that we could put out immediately through the press communications. And then I had to face the music with President Obama. And so when he got off stage, what I hadn't also known was that he was planning on having a private tete-a-tete with the president of the Philippines, President Aquino, immediately after. So this was not good. Does not set a proper tone when his country was just offended by the inappropriate hanging of his flag. So but I walked up to the president, and he's very tall. And even with my 3-inch heels, I'm considerably shorter than him, looked up at him and just said, "Sir, I'm so very sorry. This is my fault."
And I'm sure
he was very understanding.
And it never happened again. And I'm sure it never happened again.
No. Well, he asked me, he's like, "This won't happen again." And I assured him, "No, sir, it won't." And it never, ever did. We all went to protocol flag school. And we all agreed 6 eyes on everything, meaning 3 sets of eyes, always on every flag, and only protocol officers may hang them, period.
That's it. That's it. It leads me again to one very important factor in protocol. We've just spoken about flag protocol. What does the word precedence mean in protocol? How important is precedence?
Well, precedence order is incredibly important because, again, what it does is it creates an established, I'll go back to what I stated earlier a bit, but established roadmap. Leaders know who goes first, who goes second, who goes third, and why. There has to be a reason as to why someone is the first car to arrive, the first person to shake the president's hand, or the last. Why are they deemed the last? And so precedence order is dictated by a certain set of rules. And those rules can be established either within the general understanding of protocol around the world. Usually that is in accordance with when that leader was first inaugurated. What is the date of their inauguration? Now, there in some organizations like NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in some instances, the G7 and the G20, in APAC, in some of the multilateral international organizations, they set their own rules of precedence, but those are established and they are adhered to. So it could be Alpha order, Alpha by the official name of that country. And so you would make sure that it was the United States of Mexico. So you would adhere to, instead of an M, it would be a U. There are many ways in which those rules of precedence are set, but they must be adhered to time and again for them to have effect. And when they're not, is when you cause confusion and sometimes even distrust. And that's what you're trying to eliminate.
Wonderful. And I would like to mention that recent example that happened in Turkey.
Oh, well.
And that's where, again, confusion and even probably insult. The EU thinking insult. Exactly. Would you explain that? What went wrong? Did they go by precedence? Were there misunderstanding? Could you explain that, please, to the audience?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, there are bilateral, trilateral, multilateral convenings constantly every day that occur around the world. And so, at the invitation of President Erdogan,
Yes.
the president of the European Council and the president of the European Commission's seating is incredibly important.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yes.
Is the invited leader sits in the center, and then the president of the European Council and the president of the European Commission flank that president or prime minister, whomever it might be, and they are all seated together as one trilateral group. That is the proper seating precedence. And when there were men in those positions of both the president of the European Council and the president of the European Commission, you always saw them seated in that manner. But on this occasion, there was just 2 seats that were presented. And
was there already, what do you think? There were only 2. Was the first mistake already made there or not? Just for the audience really to understand.
So
the 2 seats,
I see. Sorry?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Well, I saw several errors on everyone's part, if you will.
Yeah.
Primarily the hosting country. The hosting country should affirm all details with the Office of Protocol and those staff members that come in advance. You show them a diagram in advance.
Yes.
What this looks like.
In advance.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well in advance. Oftentimes before they've even arrived to the country.
Yes.
And then offer an opportunity for them to see what it looks like, so that any adjustments that need to be made. I would oftentimes walk into a scenario, an event where in some countries it's all right for the United States flag to touch the ground. In our country, it's an offense.
Yes.
So I would have to work with them on lifting our flag off the ground so as not to cause events in that visual. Because again, what it will do is exactly what happened in this instance. It distracted everyone away from what was being said.
Yes.
And only on the error.
And yes. And you could see from her body language. So talking about Ursula von der Leyen, she was like, so where am I going to sit? And she hesitated, stood there with the hands like that. And I thought, ooh.
Awful moment and insulting, but so in addition to the host, her staff and the president of the European Council staff should have checked out these details, should have affirmed these details in advance for their principal too. But what essentially they did was, the insult was that they demoted her to foreign minister level, and had her sitting, across from the foreign minister, leading them to some sort of understanding that they were on equal footing. In precedence order, they are absolutely not on equal footing. European Council, European Commission presidents are at the level of a chief of state and head of government, and they should have been placed in the same. Now, what I will say should have happened at that moment was that the president of the European Council should have stood up and offered his chair immediately, and the host government should have acknowledged this and brought in another chair immediately.
That's what I would have done. Just bring another chair, and not to confuse and to have everyone on that stage that lifted.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, Julie, is that in these critical moments, people are hesitant to step forward and own the error. I have to own this. Someone has to fix it.
Yes.
You can't allow or look to the principals, whether it's the CEO of a company or the mom that's leading the discussion at the PTA or the president of a country.
Yes.
You have to make sure that you have, as someone who is a part of the planning of the event, of the execution of the details, the protocol officers, that you step in at that moment and fix it immediately.
Yes.
And change that error, change that dynamic. But instead, it lingered. The error lingered in the air, surrounded, enveloped everything that was being discussed. The cameras kept looking to her to see how she was.
Exactly.
Was she angry?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It was a missed moment. Okay, so the error happens. And like I said, with my error, the error happens. What do? You own it and fix it immediately.
Immediately. Thank you. Thank you. Now to another aspect, which is so important, not only in the world of diplomacy, but in general, namely respect. But again, I would like to have one example, and I have one in mind, a special one. Showing respect is crucial, but there are also limits. And I would like to ask, it's a long time ago, but I remember this picture because President Obama is so tall. And it was that visit in Japan where he greeted the former emperor of Japan, Emperor Akihito, who is short, much shorter, in front of this tall President Obama. And what he did, he bowed extremely deeply. And there was that picture in the press. So two countries were having different opinion about that. Of course, in Japan, they were very happy. They thought it was very respectful. But in the US, they thought our president shouldn't go that deep, especially because he's so tall. That picture looked really like, it was like 90-degree, bend. What do you say about that? That's what I'm saying. Respect is one thing, but are there limits? And I'm sure there was a reason.
Well, yes, you note this so well, Julie. There are limits. And, I had drafted a memo to the president on bowing because we now needed to address the social codes of conduct in Japan. Yes. Very different from the United States when it comes to greetings, when it comes to handshakes versus bows. How would that all be conducted? And as the president of the United States, as the leader of our country, they are not to bow at all, ever, to another head of state, chief of state, or head of government. They can acknowledge the bow with a nod of the head, but by bowing, and in particularly bowing as low as he did, it makes you subservient to that person.
Yes.
And he certainly did not have that intention.
Yes.
His intention, we believe, and I frankly never had a full-on conversation with him about this, but it was his upbringing. He was brought up in a culture in Indonesia. Later on, after he was born in Hawaii, his family had moved for a little bit of time to Indonesia. And in Indonesia, the culture is that to those who are elderly, your elders, you are to bow. And so it's instinctive in him to just offer that courtesy, that show of respect.
Yes. Yes.
Now, I of course had a conversation with him afterwards of, sir, we don't bow. And what was regrettable about that was, again, that the bow, it distracted from the engagement with the emperor, because everybody was talking about the fact that the president did bow as opposed to their relationship, the discussion, and all of that.
And
that,
so
I was very, every time before, and it was wonderful. I had not even gone to Japan on that trip. I had leaped ahead to China because that was a state visit. The Japanese visit was really a stopover, a very a friendly, cordial visit, whereas the visit to China was incredibly complex. It was our first engagement with Hu Jintao. We were already having a few issues that I needed to attend to. So when I heard it, I was like, oh no, why was I not there? And from there on in, I was always with the president, no matter what. But what did happen, gratefully for me, was that before he would walk out, as soon as he was finished, if he got out of his car, when he arrive to a room, he'd turn to me and say, okay, Capricia, what are my 1, 2, 3s? He wanted to make sure there were no gaffes, and he waited for me to tell him if there were any issues that he needed to be aware of. And it was, and that's a great rapport a chief of protocol can have with their leader, because they look to you for that advice and depend upon you to make sure that they don't salute a military general of another country, like what happened in our last administration, a general from a country that we don't recognize. There are these gaffes again that happen and can be really enormous distractions.
I saw actually something different in the picture, except it's such a pity, as you said, that everything was so focused on, him bowing and how low. I actually saw, of course, because he's tall, it really looked like that. But I thought the emperor was having a Western suit on, which I thought it was mutual respect to your culture, and President Obama respect to his culture. In Japan, how they would do in front of the emperor. So it was like two sides. And usually the emperor won't shake hand, but he did. So that picture is actually beautiful, but it tells so many stories, pro and cons. But I saw the pros. So because I saw two people, the emperor having a Western suit on and, stretching him the hand, which he doesn't have to. And on the other side, President Obama bowing that deeply. So it was a mutual respect in both cultures. There really was.
And in the end, as you point out, Julie, it is the acknowledgement between those two individuals, whether they are two presidents, two business people, or, two friends. What does that, do they feel respected? Do they feel honored, or do they feel offended? And, you want to always avoid the offenses.
Exactly.
And
especially, try to, especially if you are the visitor.
Absolutely.
In the host country, you want to respect their culture. Well, okay, let's leave it there. Another thing I would like to point out, we talked about the language barriers. Oh, how can we solve these problems when they occur? How about food? Which role does food play?
Oh, enormous role, enormous. I mean, just huge. I had when I worked as social secretary for then First Lady Hillary Clinton, food was a big part. She wanted to make sure that we talked a lot about the American food story. She hired for the first time an American chef, looked at different ways in which we were going to be serving the food. It was a very big deal. So, not a bewilderment as to when we were at the State Department, how she also focused on food being very, very important. And I'll never forget one of the first engagements that she had with one of her counterparts at the State Department. We had presented, the dishes. I sort of linger around after everyone's taken their seats and the discussions begin and the food's now being served. And she sort of looked down to her plate and looked up, and it was like some chicken and a little bit of vegetables and rice. It was fine, but it wasn't anything spectacular. Yes. What did it say about us? Yes. What did it say about our visitor? What did it say about this moment?
Yes.
And so she just looked at her plate, looked at me, looked at her plate. And I know Hillary Clinton very well, and I know those looks very well. And I knew, we have to make some changes.
Yes.
We have to invest in food. It's another soft power tool.
It's another soft power tool. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. And so I created the Diplomatic Culinary Initiative, whereby in this State Department, every moment, every engagement that we had, whether it was a breakfast, a luncheon, a coffee, a tea, a dinner, state dinner, official dinner, whatever it was, we were focused on making sure that that opportunity was not missed when it came to talking about food, the relationship that is between our two countries. So for instance, when we invited then Vice President Xi to the State Department for a state luncheon. And it was then Vice President Biden and Secretary Clinton hosting then Vice President Xi. And it was his first visit to the United States before he was announced to be the next president of China. Very big moment. We're resetting the relationship. How would this work? Every element of this visit had to be perfect. And so we went out and we brought in this phenomenal chef by the name of Ming Tsai, and he's an American Chinese chef. And he created a fusion menu, a fusion of the Chinese culture and the American, so that we could talk about it's just these amazing American dishes, but with hints of, because we are the United States is the great American quilt.
Yes.
We are brought together squares of other cultures and countries. So beautiful, right? In a beautiful presentation. And so, within there we had, he had 8 flavors and herbs within the rice, so that because 8 is an auspicious number in China, and there were just lots of elements. And when we brought Vice President Xi up for the greeting, I escorted him, brought him into the room, and then Secretary Clinton made the introduction and said, "Oh, we have this wonderful chef." His eyes lit up when he met Ming Tsai. He was like, "Oh my goodness, this very famous Chinese American chef is here creating this meal." And the two of them started speaking in Mandarin. It was amazing. The interpreter couldn't even keep up with them, talking about their background, talking about what they were offering. And it was just a magical moment, a moment that could not be replicated in hours and hours of discussion.
Yes.
It was fantastic.
An example again of soft power.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, we are in the 21st century now. And do you worry, where is protocol heading to, or even the whole world of diplomacy? Are there any key challenges?
Well, we are currently challenged, as you know, Julie. I mean, I would love to be holding this event with you, this discussion, face to face. So the pandemic certainly has offered some challenges, but it's also offered some opportunities.
Yes.
The challenge is that you miss getting to know and understand someone. And as I spoke of, protocol is about investing in these relationships.
Yes.
It's about creating these relationships of trust. And when you don't see someone face to face, eye to eye, you miss getting that sense that you have of someone immediately. Call it thin slicing. There are judgment moments that happen at that exact time of when you first meet someone. And so our leaders are missing out on that. Our diplomacy is missing out on that, because it takes time through a virtual setting to create a trusting, warm environment, but this is 2-dimensional. It's not 3-dimensional. And it takes out an element of that we've become accustomed to, that we depend upon when you have a face-to-face meeting. So that is one of the greatest challenges. But one of the opportunities now is, look, you and I can have a discussion, around the world. And we now are open to so many opportunities of connecting with people as we refine these virtual platforms all over the world. I mean, it's just really extraordinary. And so I'm hoping that our future of diplomacy includes a hybrid, that we continue to travel the world, because I have to go to your home. I have to go to Singapore to truly experience Singapore. I have to be there face to face to know that I'm going to absolutely adore you and love having a friendship with you. I have to do that. But in addition to that, when you're unable to have this alternative, is really a new opportunity.
It is a new opportunity. That's beautiful. It's a new opportunity. It doesn't have to be something bad or worse. It's a new opportunity.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. What message would you give us on the way? Anyone who wants to go into this industry, I'm sure they have to bring many roles. What one important message can you give us on the way?
I think that one of the messages that I would like to convey to individuals about protocol and the importance of it is for any of your engagements, preparation is so key. Preparation is truly important. And I think sometimes really underutilized and undervalued.
Yes.
Knowing in advance, doing your research, doing your homework. And then when you do have the engagement, be open to that opportunity. Take it all in, be curious about the new individual that you've met from a different culture, from a different place in the world. Find those connective tissues and then explore them. Be curious, because these opportunities, I believe, and particularly for me, offer new opportunities and can open a whole new world to you. And so once you've prepared for them, explore them, be curious about them, engage with those people who come from a different place.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And anything on the horizon? What's next? What are your plans?
Well, I'm still talking about and promoting my book, which is wonderful. It's just recently come out in paperback. So,
there we are.
Thank you, Julie.
Wonderful, wonderful book with lots of practical examples.
I'm hopeful when I come to Singapore later this year that I'll be doing a few book events. And I was quite lucky in that Sony bought the rights to it. So they are developing a series on it. And so I'm working on that. So it's very
congratulations.
I'm writing now a children's version. So I'm working on a children's version.
That's so many good news. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Julia. Thank you for this opportunity. This has been just lovely.
Well, I hope I will see you in person in November. I hope so. Now we're coming to the fun part. I've prepared 3 fun questions. We use that for our leaderboard. And the first question is industry related. What is the difference between a state visit and an official visit?
Well, actually, they're quite similar. A state visit is for a chief of state. So usually the king, queen, or president of a country. And an official visit is reserved for the head of government, usually the prime minister of a country. Or on some occasions when they don't have that the state visit is all that reigns, is all that works. And there is in the United States, the difference, the biggest difference is that upon arrival to the United States, the chief of state for a state visit is given a 21-gun salute. And for an official visit, the head of government receives a 19-gun salute.
Wonderful, beautiful.
But other than that, everything else is pretty much the same.
And the preparation time? How are the
always the same? Oh, yes. I would start usually about 6 to 8 weeks in advance of that visit in my preparation.
Wonderful. Thank you. The second question is more of a trivia question. So we guess. What is the world's first and oldest language?
Ooh.
We talked about someone off record.
Someone of record.
At the beginning. Where are they from?
Japan? No.
Tamil.
Tamil. Tamil is the
oldest. I was so surprised. 5,000 years.
I was going to say Urdu. Okay.
I was so surprised. Tamil, yes. And the youngest is Afrikaans. But I thought so. Yes.
Interesting.
Well, the last question is 5-second challenge. So we have to think quickly and fast. Name me as many constitutional monarchies as possible.
Oh my goodness gracious sakes alive. That's really tough. Oh, Julie, how could you do that to me?
It's just fun. It's the humorous part. Okay, we are coming to an end. And we used to ask, whether you drink tea or coffee. But if you drink coffee, what will be your go-to coffee order?
Oh, I like almond milk. I'm an almond milk kind of
Oh,
person, so I like a just a little bit of steamed almond milk and a strong coffee.
oh, strong coffee.
I do.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it so much, and I hope you did it too.
I
Thank you
did. I
so
did.
much for being here and answering all these questions, and we could tap into your mind and have a glimpse of the world of protocol. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank
Oh, well,
you.
I appreciate you and everything that you do. I so enjoyed today's
Thank,
conversation.
thank you. And I hope to see you in person.
You will. You will.
Thank you so much. Stay safe. Stay safe.
You too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. For all those who tuned in, I hope you really enjoyed the journey into the world of protocol and diplomacy as much as I did. Multicultural awareness, respect, protocol, and manners matter greatly, especially in times of crisis. Wearing masks in public is the most basic and obvious example why protocol and etiquette are so important today, and how small individual action can have a huge impact on our society. Civility costs nothing and buys everything. So if you liked this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I hope to see you again. Stay safe, stay tuned.